Well, hi everybody, Noreen here from Organized and Creative Mom, and I'm doing a little bit of a different type of video here today. I decided to film my creative process all the way through, and then I'm going to speed up certain parts of it, and I'm voicing over as we go. So a little bit of a different style for me, but I sure enjoy watching this type of video, so I hope you enjoy this as well. So this was creating a two-page layout for our fall blog hop at Creative Life Scrapbooking. And what I decided to do was use my leftovers from the Croptoberfest 2020 pack from Creative Memories. And as you can see, I just have two pieces of the double-sided pattern paper, one piece of the pear cardstock, and actually I didn't have any of the stickers left over. What I did have, and what I just put in that little tray there, was the Croptoberfest kind of advisor or hostess type of embellishment kit. So I knew I could use that, and then I also pulled out a sticker strip from the Hello Autumn collection, which is a beautiful collection and works very well with these Croptoberfest papers. And I'm also going to use a couple pieces of white cardstock, and I was just showing you there that I'm going to be using the Ruffle Trim Border Maker cartridge and original Border Maker system. Now this particular cartridge was really popular when it came out a while back. It was out of stock, but I think it's back in stock right now, and it is kind of a hot item. So if you like the way that this particular paper sort of border punch looks, you'll definitely want to order it sooner than later. So I'm starting by just punching one of the ruffle trim border strips from each of the two pieces of Croptoberfest paper. I was sort of thinking that what I would do was make some blocks of different patterned paper and arrange them in kind of a patchwork style arrangement on my layout. So I was going to do two border punches, but what I decided to do was punch one from each of the two sheets, and then go ahead and kind of measure how much I had left. I didn't think that if I wanted to have some 5x5 and 5x7 blocks, I didn't think I'd have quite enough room to do two full borders. And sure enough, as I look here, if I do another border strip, it's going to actually take off more than another inch, and I'll be left with smaller blocks than I wanted. So I decided to just stack the two pieces of paper and go ahead and do some cutting. So there I cut off a single inch. I've got two 1-inch strips from each paper. Then I cut at 5 inches. And now I'm just cutting again at 5 inches. And really what I'm going to be left with is 4 5x5-inch blocks and 4 5x7 blocks. So that's going to be the blocks that I'm going to use for my patchwork. Here I'm just going through and double checking which how many photos I have in which orientation. I like to work with 7, and if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I like to trim my photos just shy of 4x6 or 4x4, and that's so that I can get all the mats that I need from one piece of cardstock. And seeing as I only had the one piece of pear cardstock here, it worked really well to cut them into 3 4-inch by 12-inch strips, and then cut the two of those strips into 4x6-inch mats. You can see I didn't press hard enough to go through my 2 layers, so I'm just cutting it again. And then the third strip of 4x12-inch, I'm going to cut into 3 4x4 mats. So again, by using that kind of standard cutting guide for myself, I can get 7 photo mats, which is all I need for this particular layout, from one piece of pattern paper. Now you'll notice that I am just kind of going through here and deciding what papers that I could use in which orientation. I'm just kind of making sure that I've got them all. I get a little bit confused here, and I start sort of thinking and rethinking, and just kind of this is part of my kind of cogitative or thinking process, just looking at how many I've got from each. So I start putting them all down, and then I decide, no, I'm going to pick them all up here. I'm going to start fresh. And this is sometimes what I just have to do to sort of clear my mind and start again. So I'm putting down the 4 5 by 5 inch squares and making sure that I have one of each color, and doing the same with the 5 by 7. So I'm making 2 piles basically, and making sure that I have 4 of each of those sizes, 1 in each of the patterns. So now that I've got my border trim cartridges, my mats, and all my little sort of patchwork squares, I've kind of cleared them off to the side, and I'm putting down my 2 pieces of white cardstock, which I'm going to use for my layout base. So I decided that I was going to start with one of the 1 by 12 inch strips, and then the opposite colored ruffled trim border. And one of those sets of borders is going to go at the side, and one of them is going to go at the bottom. Then I start sort of placing my pieces so that I get a variety of the different patterns and colors throughout or across both pages. And so I just kind of go through, and you'll see me kind of play around with them. So there I've got all 4 of the colors on the one side, and now I'm going to play on the other side and see what I can do to make all 4 of the patterns show up on this side. I also wanted to make sure that I staggered the different papers so that I didn't have the 2 5 by 7s right on top of each other. And this is just to give a little bit more variety. You can see I'm just debating there where I want to put everything. Didn't like that, so let's flip some papers over and just move some stuff around here. So again, just keep on moving them until I'm happy. Switch the placements. And now I have 2 navies beside each other, so I didn't like that. It becomes a bit of a puzzle to put them all together. But I decided to go ahead and start adding my pre-cut mats. This is the pear color, and I love how it kind of ties all of the different colors together. And I'm just placing one of the mats on each of the squares, and then I realized that I'm 1 square short. So I decided to use the 4 by 4 inch piece of cardstock backing. It's like a printed cardstock backing that was in the little package of embellishments. And even though it said Croptoberfest 2020 on it, I just covered that up with one of the embellishment tags. So I'm planning on using that for my title. So now I'm just going through here, and this is where I realize I've got navy and navy next to each other. So I'm just moving things around a little bit more. At this point, I'm kind of talking to myself and just saying, I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. So again, I just kind of keep moving my photos, moving the papers around. I don't know about you, but I sort of touch things and talk to myself and just sort of figure out where things are going. So that was me just kind of looking at what I might use as the title. I might use the words Hello Autumn. I might use some of the sticker strips. And here I'm coming back to, again, just kind of make sure that I'm moving my patterned paper pieces around. So here I decide to switch the 2 columns basically. And I'm going to put the plaid square instead of the other color square. So now I'm a bit happier that everything is where I want it, and I'm going to start to adhere. So I'm going to just fast forward through this portion of the video. So now I'm just going to go ahead and basically adhere each of the photos to their mat, and then center the mat right on top of the patterned paper piece. So you can see that I don't spend a lot of time doing the adhering. I spend a little bit more time when I'm trying to get them all lined up. But the beauty of doing something like this is that not everything has to be exactly lined up. So a lot of times in my 1, 2, 3 videos, you'll see that I really try to keep symmetrical distances between photos and things like that. Here, it's really done for me because by centering the photo on the mat and then centering the mat onto the piece of paper, it all works out for me. Now, when you see here that I've got a couple of pieces of paper that, even though I stacked them and cut them together so that they would be as close in size as possible, you can see that it's slightly, the blue piece at the top is slightly wider than the navy piece underneath. Here, I had to do a quick adhesive change, and now I'm just going to place that plaid piece of paper on top of the blue, so you don't even really see in the end that the two pieces of paper were slightly different sizes. So overlapping and just kind of lining things up covers a multitude of sins. Here I'm just adding some adhesive to the border. I could have got out my repositionable adhesive, but I just had my regular tape runner out, so I decided to just keep going with that. Grabbed my multi-purpose tool after I kind of mistakenly let it drop, and that's really that side of the layout complete. So I move on to the other side and just repeat the same process, adding the photos onto the mat, adding the mat onto the piece of patterned paper. Now this whole process of adhering took about 8.5 minutes. And this particular section I sped up kind of 2 times the speed, so it's about 4 minutes long. So again, once the decisions are made, the layout comes together very quickly. Oops, and I kind of almost forgot to put it onto the mat first. Luckily, I caught myself in time and was able to go back and do it properly. Getting all of my pieces lined up here. And you can see that there's a little bit of white showing on the right-hand side of the layout. I'm going to trim that off later. Here I realized that, I hadn't done the best job of centering. It was a little bit crooked for my taste. So I went back with my multi-purpose tool, lifted it up, and re-centered it. There's that last picture going down. Again, pretty fast. Grayson and I had actually rented some bikes in Montreal, so those were some of the pictures that we had. You don't see too many pictures of me on a bike, that's for sure. All right, so now I'm just adding the border pieces along the bottom. First the 1 by 12 inch piece, and then I'm going to add the blue piece, the navy piece on top. I had kept those small little scraps that come off from the border maker, thinking that maybe I would weave them in between, but they weren't quite exactly the same size, so I decided to just kind of toss them. So here I'm just going to take a tiny sliver of paper off the edge just to kind of neaten up that edge, and the new 12-inch trimmer does a beautiful job of that. Then I just flip it over and trim off any excess, and I'm all done. So now I'm really on to embellishing, and at this point I've been at it for about 18-20 minutes, and I pull out my little tray. I had already emptied my little package of Croptoberfest embellishments. Again, these are the little advisor exclusive packages of embellishments that Creative Memories offers at different times of the year, usually for NSD, Croptoberfest, and then open house. Advisors can purchase them and gift them to their customers, or include them with workshop kits, etc. So it's just a fun little thing that Creative Memories does for advisors to help us build our business. So you can see here that I'm just kind of playing around. I like using the die cuts because you don't have backing on them. When you put them down to kind of test where they're going, they don't stick. So you can see that I'm really just trying to have a good variety of the different kinds of colors. I want to make sure I have some red, the pear green color, and some blue in each of my little embellishment clusters. Don't quite like that there, so I'm just going to kind of keep moving things around. I decided to make a little focal point there with the apples. That's going to be my title area. And I'm just going back in, adding leaves, taking away different little, at first I thought I was really going to use a lot of the little journal boxes, but I think in the end I only have the 3. So I'm just going back in and adding in, a leaf, an apple or a little heart, and one of the little tags or journal boxes. So as you see me going through and just moving things around, I will often touch things and sort of say to myself, okay, I've got green and blue and red here. I need green and blue and red down here. And I just keep on moving them around. I tend to use 3 embellishment clusters, and again, you hear lots of designers talk about this, but really the magic of 3 is that it creates a triangle, and that triangle helps to direct your eye throughout the entire artwork or layout in this case. So here I'm just switching around my colors. Just again going, you can see me pointing, and I'm just talking to myself, kind of saying, okay, yeah, I've got red, green, and blue. I switched out one of the little boxes there so I could add some more green into that particular cluster. And then I'm just moving things around to make sure that I have, a good variety in each of the clusters. And I'm just going to speed up this next part as I just finish off kind of deciding what I want where, and then I'm going to start to adhere them down. One of the things that I decided on was using the word autumn from the Hello Autumn sticker strip as part of my title. So basically I wanted to incorporate the idea that this was autumn or fall in Montreal. My son Grayson and I spent about 7 weeks in Montreal this past little while as we were going through and having him have medical treatment and then surgery at the Shriners Hospital in Montreal. And then just before he went into the hospital, we had a couple of fantastic days where we were able to sightsee around Montreal. This was down at the old port area of Montreal, and we were able to, as you can see, rent the bikes, go through and enjoy a beautiful day. This was, I think, September 28th or something like that, and it was 32 degrees Celsius. So it was an absolutely beautiful day. We went up into the Grand Eye, which is like a large sort of Ferris wheel with the little enclosed cabins, and the view from there of Montreal was just phenomenal. So I decided to use that word autumn as part of my title, and you can see that I just taken my little tiny microtip scissors and cut some of my small foam squares into small little strips, and that way I can fit the foam squares in behind the word autumn. And then I just added it right on top of that little blue banner, and then just wrote in Montreal with my brown dual tip pen. For the rest of the clusters, I just tend to add a couple of, kind of group a couple of the items together with regular adhesive, and then I usually like to pop one embellishment up and off of the surface of the layout with the foam squares. So here again, I'm just kind of gluing or adhering a couple of leaves together, pasting them down, and then adding my apple on top. Then I just take my brown tip dual tip pen again and just a couple of little points of journaling. I didn't even really take the time here to space them out, and as you'll see as I'm writing this part of the journaling, I actually run out of space a little bit, but I get all of the information in, and it's okay. It's not going to make me want to go back and redo the layout or anything, even though it's a little bit cramped. And that's really it. That layout is done in under a half an hour. Of course, I sped up a couple sections, but really it's a fast layout, and it was a great way to use up kind of leftovers that I had. I'll be sure to put a bit of a cutting guide and a sketch onto the blog. as well as some photos that I'm just about to take here. But I'd love to hear what you think of this. Would you like to see more of these types of process layouts, or do you prefer when I'm talking while I'm doing the layout? Thanks very much for watching, and we will see you again soon.